Just waiting for the crowd. Just like. She's always said something.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. As they say, the weather outside is frightful, but having you here is delightful. I'm really glad to see you all in our community. So thank you for being here on such a bad weather day. I guess it's only going to get worse. So we'll be here for a couple of hours. Hopefully, when we get out, we'll still be able to get out of the parking lot and we'll be able to get to our homes. I do want to welcome everyone, and I want to welcome our candidates for municipal judge and also for our trustee positions. I'll be introducing them in just a moment. I want to introduce myself just briefly. My name is Greg Lampe. I've lived in the village with my wife Jody since 1990, and so we've been here for a while. And of course, like all of you, we just love our village of Shorewood Hills. I currently serve as a member of the Personnel Committee and as a member of the Shorewood Hills Fire and EMS Association. And Jody will be assisting me with keeping time today. And she's got a sign to let the candidates know when there's 15 seconds left in their remarks, and then a hard stop when we reach our limit, just to keep us on schedule. I ask that everyone today, please, as much as you can, be respectful and courteous towards each other and the candidates. I ask that you please refrain from personal attacks and treat each other with respect, kindness, and stay oriented to issues and not persons. So let me just very briefly introduce the candidates, and then I'll have them introduce themselves in just a moment. And these are in alphabetical order, just so you know. So Carol Barford, of course, Gloria Beach, Brian Huchig, so close, sorry, Brian, and Rocky Van Asten. And for municipal judge, of course, it's Felice. And I wanted to say Boris Rudin, but Felice is good too. There is one other person that is on the ballot and running for the trustee position, Kate Crowley. Oh, that's not good. No. Okay, Kate Crowley, and she has asked that I let you all know that she is withdrawn from the trustee race. And even though her name will be on the ballot in our April election, she asked that you not vote for her, but choose from among the other candidates. So let me just very briefly preview the structure today. As if you've been here before in other forums, you know the structure, but if you've not been here or don't remember, I can just very briefly tell you how this is going to be divided up basically into 4 segments. The first segment is opening statements by the candidates. Those will be 3 minutes each. So they each have 3 minutes to introduce themselves to you, to talk about who they are and perhaps why each of them are running for the office. Then there'll be questions 2 and answers. Questions 2 and answers from the candidates. Each of those questions, each person will be given 2 minutes to respond to those questions. And then within 15 minutes remaining in the forum, I'll stop us and each candidate will have 2 minutes to make closing statements, kind of summarizing or whatever they choose to do with their time. And then at the very end, after we're all done at 6 o'clock, I encourage you to remain and mingle with the candidates, particularly if we don't get to all the questions, which we won't get to, and you want to pursue a question with a candidate or just say hello. We welcome you to do that. Okay, so now I'll just turn to the candidates. Go ahead, Rocky.
Are we on the Zoom call?
It's on Zoom.
Oh, all right.
I didn't want to distract and put it on.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask each candidate now to introduce themselves. And again, I'm going to do what I'm going to do all the time, and that is I'm going to draw your names to randomize. I know, but equal time, equal participation.
Self-respect that hat.
It's all good. It's a Stetson, so I hope it's good. Okay. All right, so let me do this. So in round one, we'll have Felice go first in introductions, then Gloria, then Brian, then Carol, and then Rocky. And I'll review that again as we go. It's not a memory test. So Felice, I'll have you lead us off, and I'm not sure, do I need to hand them out?
I think that might have been having an issue.
I can just speak loud.
Okay. Hi, thank you all for being here. My name is Felice Gorsley Rudin, and I grew up in this village. We moved to the village in 1971 when I was 7 years old, and I lived here until I went away to college, and then I still visited periodically and considered this my permanent residence for many years. And then eventually, later on, after I was married and had a couple kids, I moved back to the village, and that was 26 years ago. So I really consider Sherwood Hills my home. And I really believe very strongly in community service and giving back to our community and paying it forward. I was a trustee for 11 years for the village. And then when Marilyn Townsend, who was the judge before me for the village, decided to step down from that position, she encouraged me to run for municipal judge. And I have been municipal judge for almost 8 years. And so we have a 2-year term for municipal judge. And I am running again for another 2 years. I would ask you for your vote, even though I'm running unopposed. I do appreciate the sense that I do have your support and that the position of municipal judge and our municipal court has your support. I am also the president of the Wisconsin Municipal Judges Association, and I am on the faculty for the judicial education for municipal judges. So I teach other municipal judges once or twice a year. Separately from that, I have a day job. I'm currently working at the Medical College of Wisconsin. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Pharmacology and Toxicology there, and a legal epidemiologist. I work also with the Comprehensive Injury Center there, and it's Wisconsin Alcohol Policy Project, where I do work on helping communities understand what they can do with their local laws to create an environment that is less conducive to excessive alcohol use. And I try not to make that a conflict as municipal judge, and I really try to be fair and impartial when I'm judging cases and look at the facts and call the balls. So that's my intro.
That one, thank you. So, yeah, I get to follow Felice. Hi, everyone. My name is Gloria Beach, and I am running for a seat on the Board of Trustees. I want to say that I feel like we are so fortunate that as a village, we have local governance. We have 7 neighbors comprising our Board of Trustees. Chances are good that you might already know somebody on the Board of Trustees. And if you don't, the barriers to getting to know someone is very low because the entire board lives right here in our neighborhood. For the past 10 years, I have been involved directly in our village governance as a volunteer in our committee structure. I've served as a member of the Recreation Committee. I was appointed to the Ad hoc Stormwater Committee after the 2018 flood. And most recently, since 2022, I've worked as a member of the Finance Committee. Working on these committees, it provides a wonderful opportunity to understand the different aspects of the challenges our village faces, as well as an excellent opportunity to meet other residents from around the village interested in working together to find a solution. Last year, the Finance Committee and the Board of Trustees learned that the village is projecting an operational budget deficit period beginning in 2027 and increasing through at least 2030. The problem is that our expenses are outpacing our revenues. Driving our expenses are personnel costs and inflationary pressure. Limiting our revenues are state mandated tax levy limits, restricting the village's ability to raise property taxes. Going to referendum to raise the property taxes through a tax levy referendum would be an obvious solution to increase revenues and close the budget gap. I would like to explore other options to balance our budget first. I think we need to thoroughly explore all other options before asking residents to increase their property taxes. For the past few months, I've been going door to door in our village to say hi to people I already know and introduce myself to people I haven't met yet. Engaging with residents, it can't be surprising that different people have different priorities in this village. I've talked with people about dark skies, affordable housing, tax increment districts, cats roaming outside, potholes, logic, garden homes, Sweetbriar, maintaining village assets, tapping our trees for maple syrup. I learned that someone on Wellesley will have his birthday on election day this year, April 7th. I've met lots of dogs. I've met a lot of kids who have joined their parents talking to me. I met somebody who's 16 who said they want to vote for me. I'm sorry, they can't. But I've really enjoyed talking with residents. People have different priorities about what should be addressed, but without exception, all village residents that I've talked to are absolutely united in their fierce desire to protect our village. We know we have important issues to address in our village. We have two questions to answer. One, how are we going to move forward? Two, who do we trust to be on the board to represent our interests? Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Brian?
You see if the microphone works well enough.
Just make sure this works. Right, so my name is Brian Etching. I live at 3414 Lake Mendota Drive. It's my second home in the village. I haven't been here as long as many. I've been here for 5 years. I have two kids. One of them is at Meeting House. The other is in third grade at Troy Elementary. I plan to be here for quite a long time. I like Shorewood Hills. I love Shorewood Hills. In fact, it's a fantastic place to live. It vastly exceeded what I thought I was going to get when I moved here. Everything from the way that we do the 4th of July celebrations to finding out about the kids' camps that I can put kids into and my kids have enjoyed, to the pool, to letting them golf at the club. We can take lessons there. There's a million amenities about this place that make it really special. And one of the things that's eminently true is that all of us that are here, and regardless of what one might think of various candidates, we all are here because we love the village. We really want this place to succeed. We want it to grow. We want it to be the place that kids come back to. One of the things that stunned me about this place when I moved here was the number of people I met that had the means to live anywhere in the world, and they returned to raise their kids here. I mean, I think I personally know at least 10. And this is something you expect in small towns, but it's not something you expect to find in a wealthy community like this, where people are returning back to be able to participate and live here and raise their children that way. And that kind of long-term commitment to building and sustaining a community takes thought and it takes planning. So I have a long history of executive management at some private firms, mostly in the building and technology frame trades. And then in addition to that, I serve on the board of Blackhawk Country Club. I'm a ski patroller there. I teach ski patrol, the EMT side to ski patrollers, as well as the toboggan and skiing side. So the thing to take away from this is I have some experience working with some kind of quirky people that are running an organization together, trying to figure out how to get things done, all of whom really genuinely love what they're doing. And I have some professional experience that I think can help meld what I perceive to be a couple of different outlooks about the village that are going on today. So that is raising my final point, which is just like the internet, I have this feeling that the Shorewood is kind of broken apart into different bubbles. There's a bubble with a narrative that says that things are totally wrong on the side of administration and the way things are run. And there's a side that thinks that perhaps residents are projecting too much or wanting too much or being difficult. I think based on some of my management experience, I can help bridge that and bring some ideas to bring those two together. And I hope I get a chance to talk about those today. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm so glad to see my stalwarts, my neighbors and friends here in the room, and also very glad for the people who have taken time out of their day to watch on Zoom. If you don't know me, I'm Carol Barford. I've lived in the village for over 25 years, raised my two kids here. Paul and I, my husband, we live on Wellesley Road, and we love living in the village. Can't imagine living anywhere else. I am seeking my third term on the board, so I'm the only incumbent from the board here, and I am keenly aware of the challenges facing our community, including governance, staffing, budget, and zoning. Recordings of each board meeting since May, you may know, have run into the wee hours, showing conflict, dissatisfaction, and frustration. My greatest concern is the turnover in staff right now that are making it hard to meet even our state mandated responsibilities of the audit and elections. If I'm reelected, this will be my top priority, and hopefully I'll be also reappointed to personnel where I feel like I can make a difference with our staff. But although the last year has been very difficult, I've learned a lot. Learned about open records requests, learned about our zoning ordinances, and other technical things that turned out to make a big difference in how the village runs. I've also learned that my neighbors are very happy and willing to pitch in and do a lot of work, a lot of research, and in some cases even investing their personal funds to try to make things right here in the village. It's inspiring to see this collective action, and I would bring all of this learning, both about the issues and about the community, to a third term. In my work life, I'm a scientist and an administrator at UW-Madison and have been for 25 years. And I've seen it shown many times that the past is the best predictor of the future. And even though I'm an incumbent, and I have to own part of what's been going on here in the village over the last couple of years, I think you can be assured that I would continue to be well prepared for meetings, to listen and to advocate, to listen respectfully to people both in meetings and elsewhere, and to apply my knowledge and experience to do what I think is best for the village. So I believe that no matter what comes up, and we don't know exactly what that will be, and last year has shown us that, that these three principles are at the core of service.
I think this works. Well, I had a great talk, but she who must be obeyed, cut it all apart. So, I wrote down, was here to try to stay within time. Pretty much, I've lived here for almost 40 years, I think 38 and a half to be exact. Been on the past trustee and an EMS for almost 20 years. I'm now retired, but professionally, I was an engineer, worked mostly in new product development and then troubleshooting. I'd be called in when the processes didn't work and they'd have me try to figure them out. This is what I do. My hobbies are, well, my partner Jenny, landscaping, sailing. I love to sail. And I'm basically helping anybody who asks. So here goes my very, very part. It was good. Anyways, the song "The Badlands" by Bruce Springsteen, one of my favorite songs, contains lyrics which I find fitting for the times we're in. The poor men want to be rich, rich men want to be king, and the king ain't satisfied till he rules everything. The song goes on to talk about human flaws and what one does to get past them. Our current and recent village story is a flawed story of centralized control, unnecessary building projects, and limiting information. All this driven through a constant drone of the board knows best. I believe it's time for a new board, a new story, one which promotes independent committees, greatly limits board control, and promotes an open community environment. Our village residents have recently made their voices heard at community meetings and via surveys regarding the physical structures of the village. Here is what I heard. They expressed a need to improve and better utilize our fire station. I think we should make that happen. Regarding the village hall, they see a need to update, but not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Resident Tom Deegan, sitting over there, has proposed a set of plans addressing these very desires at a greatly lower cost over the proposals being presented at Tuesday's board meeting. Residents really want movement towards utilization of our pool area and the decrepit community center. I've tried that for 25 years. As we pull these ideas together, as with every family budget, we must prioritize needs with our expenses. The challenge is always to balance the structural capital costs with keeping the lights on, sewers clear, and the roads passable. We need to take a serious look at how we spend our operational budgets, which are in serious trouble, as Gloria pointed out, in the very near future. Can we cut, change, and reorganize to strengthen our operations budgets? It will be painful work, but work that must be done. Short Hills once defined by cooperation, teamwork. It was all our voices coming together as one. Our new story involves bringing that old story back to life. The correction will not be easy. The current system is full of speed bumps and roadblocks specifically designed to prevent our original stories. Well, punt.
Sorry. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the questions now. Each candidate will get 2 minutes to answer each of the questions. As you came in the door today, you had a chance to get a handout with all the questions I received. The questions appear on those sheets in chronological order from the first question submitted to the last question submitted. To see it. Over that last 2 days, I've spent time reviewing the questions. I did a detailed analysis and found that they fall nicely into 9 categories. So I'm going to tell you what the categories are, and then we're going to draw out of a hat. I'm going to have Jody draw the category, and then I'll go to the question that matches the category, if that makes sense. So let me tell you what the 9 categories are. I thought this was really interesting. Actually, maybe I'm a geek that's my background is in close rhetorical analysis. I thrive on the written words, so yeah. So the 9 categories: village safety, communication, transparency and government, village buildings, village meetings and governance, village staff retention and salaries, the future of the village budget and revenue, and personal attributes. I feel like I'm playing Jeopardy. Those are the categories. So let me have Jordan pick out, they're all in there.
Yeah.
So the first category is village meetings. So I'll read you the first question under that. And I arranged the questions according to chronological order as well, just to be fairly randomized. So I didn't rank these in any way. Village meetings. How would you encourage more civility from the public and the trustees in both correspondence and during meetings? Over the past year, we have seen some contentious issues in the village. Contentious issues by definition are characterized by differences of opinion and how best to move forward. Several meetings this past year have devolved into accusations that question the motives, honesty, and integrity of individuals. How can we get a process where we can express our points of view with civility and agree to disagree without resorting to attacks on character? I'm happy to repeat or centralize that question for you. And the order will be, I'll ask Carol to go first, then Brian, then Rocky, then Gloria, and then Elise, if you want to weigh in. So we'll start with Carol.
Thanks, Greg. Yes, civility at meetings. So I think that it first of all stems from everybody getting the same shot to say what they have to say. I think that we could perhaps be more strict about time limits, just so that that fair is fair. I think also a little bit of reorganization of some of the board meetings might help. We have a public comment period that is stretched as long as 3 hours. That doesn't make for a great meeting in terms of cognition by the end or mood. It doesn't promote us getting along together. I think it's been suggested that we might put some of the public comment, parse it out according to the agenda, let people talk before each agenda item, and then also is according to, matching up with what's going on with that agenda. And then any other topics could be brought up at the end of the meeting. There's nothing about this in statute or ordinance, so I wouldn't be opposed to giving it a try. It's worth a try because meetings aren't good right now, and I think that trying a few new things might be in order.
So how to make the meetings and Shorewood run more civilly? I don't think it comes down to a set of procedures. And I don't think it comes down to adjustments in how the village has functioned for a long time in terms of board meetings, because we have a long history of being far more civil than recent times. I think that the lack of civility that we're encountering today that is going on the board is really, it's a symptom of a level of a lack of transparency about what has been occurring. So if anybody that's followed any of the issues that have been going on, there's a great example of just, for example, in the Logix purchase, the P&L that was not shared with some of the trustees, while those same trustees were expected to vote yay or nay without recognizing that that building was losing $1.2 million a year. A number of residents were genuinely, and trustees were genuinely outraged at the fact that that information was not shared with them. There were many opportunities for it to come out. There were many emails denying the fact that was the case before it turned out to be true that it had not been shared. So in order to fix the civility problem here, the first thing that we need is genuine transparency. All information to trustees needs to be shared to all trustees. We can't live in a world where some people know that there's the DA open record request existing and the staff asking for raises, while some of the trustees are unaware of that fact, or that the initial response was to decline that DA request, something that might have changed the answer of some of those trustees who were voting. So the first thing we need to do is get to a baseline where all trustees have the same information to make intelligent decisions. That will greatly change the civility of the discussion that goes on here. And I think that's where our focus should be.
Does this work?
Yes.
Yeah, to me, it's like a root cause thing. Civility at the meeting is more of a symptom, not a problem. It's I mean, when you think you're always being lied to, you're always suspicious. And we are constantly seeing that information's hid. Information comes out far later after decisions are made. If you go to a board meeting, you have to somehow come up with all the things you want to say before they ever talk about it. Where back when I was on the board last time, with Guard and then Peter running it, and it may have changed by the time Peter was there, is the public spoke after the motion was on the floor. So they actually knew what was going on. And we rearranged the schedule to move things that the public was there for. We'd move that to the front. When everyone was satisfied, then we'd get on with business and the rest went home. You can't do that until we address, we gotta rebuild the committees. We gotta get the trustees off the committees. The committees have to be full of residents there, not trustees. Trustees get their vote up here. They don't have to be down there. And when we get to the committees, that's the place where people get to talk and they get to argue these things out and things go back and forth. We used to get the head of the board, Peter or Guard would assign it to a committee. They come back to the board. we'd review it. If we thought it was good, we may pass it. If not, we wrote our concerns and it went back to the committee. That's how we addressed it back then, and I think that's how we should address it again. It works for years that way. And that's probably what I would do. Thank you. Mhm.
Well, I agree about the committees. But what I really think is missing in our village, we talk about the civility, we talk about the tone, but what I really find missing is respect. And when I say that, what I mean is, as a resident, when I'm asking for information that I'm entitled to receive, and I don't receive it, and I'm given excuses, or I'm told it doesn't exist, only to find out later it does exist, or I have done work to do an analysis, and then some people are told that my analysis is incorrect, but nobody can actually prove that that's incorrect. That's a lack of respect. When I'm not kept on the email response, but staff receives the email response, but then I'm told in public that I received the email response, only to find out later, no, I didn't. That's a lack of respect. When someone makes a mistake, we're all humans. We all make mistakes. But when someone makes a mistake, but they can't acknowledge that, but they refuse to acknowledge that. Last month, we had a resident, David, my David, standing up, who backed into the solar shares, the cost of the solar shares. And he was told in public that his math was wrong. Actually, no, it wasn't. The math was correct. And now we have emails that show that the math was correct. Another resident has requested open records for that same information. He's still waiting to get that information. That's a lack of respect. So when we want the temperature to lower, let's treat each other with respect. I want to treat the board with respect. I think I do. But let's treat the residents with respect too.
I want to say, by the way, she's a really big judge. I went before her once.
So, first of all, I want to say why I got into law. I started out as a trustee. I'd been on the PTO, I'd been PTO president, and I, did things a certain way. And then I became a new trustee, and I knew nothing about law. And I went to the seminar for new elected officials. And I would say that should be mandatory for every new elected official. It opened my eyes. First of all, I learned about things I knew nothing about, like what's involved in maintaining a road. Very important. But secondly, I learned about our public records and open meetings law. And actually, that's what got me interested in law and started me in the direction that I eventually went to law school and became an attorney. Because I felt like I had been operating, with blinders on, that without knowing the law, without even knowing that this law existed, I lacked information. I knew there were so many other areas that I lacked information about. And to function even as a trustee, I needed to know more law. But I want to go back to that public records and open meeting law. It's really, really important. That's the law that provides us with transparency. And what it means is two things. First of all, everything that's a public record has to be made available to the public for inspection. Sometimes there's a copying cost. And the other is that the meetings, trustee meetings, elected official meetings, have to be done in public. They have to take place in public. And even 3 people together is a meeting.
Thank you very much. And thanks for cooperating with our timekeeper. Really appreciate that. Okay, we're gonna go on and pick another category here. After this round, I'm going to look to the audience for questions, because I promised to provide space for audience questions, and as you came in, you should have received a card to fill out, and then we'll draw that card out and we'll ask that question, so. Okay, this category is communication. And I'll read the question and I'll give you the order. What is your perspective on the climate in the village in relation to residents' communication with the board and staff? If you think it should be improved, what would you specifically do or think should be done to foster that? And this round's order is Brian, then Rocky, and then Felice, if she'd like to weigh in, then Gloria, and then Carol.
Before we answer, can you clarify that a little bit? I'm not exactly sure what they're looking for.
Right, could you read that again,
I'll
please?
just read it again because I'm just taking it verbatim off of what a resident asked, and I promised unfiltered questions and unedited, so let me read it again. What is your perspective on the climate in the village in relation to residents' communication with the board and staff? If you think it should be improved, what would you do or think should be done to foster that? Okay. Brian, yeah, Brian's first.
So communication, when you're a resident especially, to the trustees in the village currently is, and to the staff, is actually pretty difficult. I've participated in some of it, and largely it consists of emails with CCs and BCCs that are sent to the trustees, which may or may not be just completely ignored and not responded to. And oftentimes residents take to copying other residents upon it to try to elicit a response from trustees in order to be able to get it. Occasionally you'll get a response. Most often you will not. When you do get a response, this is especially to trustees now, not to the staff, Brian, to be fair to you. The trustees' responses, from what I've seen, and this is primarily John in this particular instance, is you may or may not get an actual response. So I'll go back to that P&L example for a minute. Before, Shabnam wrote looking for it, and John's responses to it were, you all had it. I shared it with anything that I had with everyone. All trustees had the same information, which is wildly not true. She was just being gaslit. That is a difficult environment for somebody to operate inside of. And that's a proven fact, by the way. Anybody that has questions about it, I'll be happy to send the actual information to, just in case anybody doubts the veracity. So communication, how to fix the communications between residents and trustees is hard. I would suggest, if you ask me, I haven't thought about how to fix it before, but two ideas immediately come to mind. First, I would be in support of and participate in a public forum akin to Reddit or some other public forum board where the responses are there for all to read, and others, and like Slack, the documents can be attached. There's a lot of technology solutions that exist for this kind of selective communication that goes on. And I see the stop, but we have to fix that in order to address the problem of what that tone of that looks like, because people are just trying to get responses. Oh, I'm sorry. P&L stands for profit and loss. So in the case of, and in that context, it's the logic building had a profit and loss statement that had been distributed by the seller that wasn't shared broadly.
The reason why I asked for clarification is communication two-way is tough if you're a trustee because of open records and whatnot. So some people will think that a lack of responding is a lack of responding when actually it's more of an open records thing that they have to be careful of. But back to communication, as the old residents know, I actually wrote a newspaper here for almost 2 years back in the 90s. And then I kind of tried to start writing one again this time, a kind of a newsletter, and it's amazingly difficult to do that. The reason why I started doing those things is because when I read the village bulletin, I think it's highly filtered. I think the trustees and the board has a lot of authority to sanitize what we read there into just kind of their side of the story, and we don't get both ways. The first time around the board, we got guard to change that, and that they tried to put both sides of the issues on, and I believe Peter carried on the tradition, but the tradition at some point after that was lost. And we're back to getting this real like vanilla thing that doesn't appear. So I guess if I was gonna try to do it, there is a group trying to fix it. I think that there are a number of boards out there. A lady just started a board in the village. I can't think of the top of my head. That might be a way that people could talk generally. And then somehow we got to figure out how to create a village newspaper. I don't know how to do that. What we have doesn't work. I think there are some people who are very good at that particular type of media that we could get together and figure out something that does work and then codify it. So it can't be changed back by future trustees who kind of want their side of the story out. To me, that's the whole problem is if people feel like something's being hidden and everything else explodes from there. I hope that answered the question.
My next.
Elise, if she wants to wait. Yeah.
I'm gonna focus on staff actually, and from the perspective of the municipal court. So first of all, I want to say I'm very lucky to have an amazing municipal clerk. That's Linda Graff, and we're very, very lucky to have her. She works part-time. But we also rely on having someone to serve as the assistant clerk position as well when we're having initial appearances. And we've had a person who was helping with that, who was a Spanish interpreter, but she has gotten a full-time job, so she's not available. So we rely on someone else from our village administration to step in and be the staff for that clerk. So that puts another pressure on that person in terms of, extra work, but they're not required to do it. It's offered to them and it's paid. We also rely very much on our connections with the administration. Obviously, the court has to be impartial and not represent one side or the other, but for payroll, for use of the space, for the courtroom, for technology, there's a lot of interaction with the staff. And it wouldn't be possible for our court to function without our superb staff and without the ability to interact politely and respectfully. We also rely on the police department to provide a bailiff during court for safety and security. And again, this is one of those issues where we don't want to be, we want to keep our impartiality, but at the same time, we are dependent on staffing from the village. And so everything is intersectional and shared and cooperative. And it's really important in the village to be that. And I just want to say, I also appreciate so much that this village runs on volunteers beyond our staff. And that includes the trustees, our volunteers.
My turn. Well, my perspective is that if everyone agreed that the communication and the climate were great, this wouldn't be a question. I think it's not great, and I think it should be addressed. And I went digging in the papers that I brought to pull up an agenda. On this agenda, written comments can be sent to info@shorewoodhills.org. And that was something, it didn't used to be like this. It used to be that people could come to committee meetings and they could be called on during committee meetings without a big fuss. It used to be that people could contact the chair of the committee before a committee with questions, with issues that they had. It used to be that people could go to committee and be participating in the committee structure, but we've been locked out as residents. And the result is this info@shorewoodhills.org. I don't think anyone uses this. Instead, people send emails to the entire board. And then, as Brian pointed out, some board members respond, some members don't. I will say that, Carol, you have responded. John responds the most, but there's a narrative that it doesn't feel it doesn't feel clean. What I think, yes, I do think it needs to change. What I think should happen is we should use our committee structure so that village residents can participate and understand what the process is before it gets to the board level. That way, I think that these emails to the whole board would diminish significantly. If people felt that they had a voice and were being listened to, it would lower the temperature.
You. So I think that now that I'm an empty nester, there are many different villages of Shorewood Hills, and for a while your kids are in the Shorewood School and you're in that village, and then rec programs, and then you're in that village, and then you're an empty nester and you're in this other village, and the communication goes along within those groups, but not always between those groups, and definitely not equally between all those groups and the board or the committees. I was just completely clueless about any of that when my kids were little. So I think that there's a common denominator that if we could do better at, we would get a lot of traction, and that's the website. We spent some money on the website and got a new one a year or so ago, and you know, for various reasons, staff turnover obviously being one of them, it is not a place where you can go for very good information. The calendar needs to be better. Each of the pages needs to be populated better, and to create the impression that what's there is current and that you can actually go there and maybe even get some advice on where to send your questions or your concerns. I will say that messages that come from residents to the entire board are very difficult to deal with. You know, it's an open meetings violation to respond right to all of those people. And I think that establishing that, in addition to that, establishing an expectation of how soon you should respond would be a really good thing across the board. How soon should a trustee respond? 24 hours, within a week? It would be great to create a sort of a level playing field there so that everyone knew what to expect.
Thank you all. That was good. Okay, we're going to look into the pot of questions and pull out a question to ask the candidates. These are your questions.
Someone examine that too.
So here's the question from our audience. Tell us about a time when you had to make a difficult decision in your personal or career life. What do you use to help you make difficult decisions? And for this round, we'll have Gloria, Carol, Rocky, Brian, and then Felice. And thank you to that audience member.
So that was called a STAR question. STAR questions are no fun, and I haven't practiced them. I will say that when I have a difficult problem to solve, typically what I do is I get really quiet. Now, those of you who know me might find that funny. I see that. I get really quiet, and it's like a rock tumbler. I start thinking about it, and then I start thinking about, well, what if we did this? What if we did this? But ultimately what I do is I go back to my core group. I have a group of people I trust to tell me the truth. When I say something stupid, they'll say, well, that's stupid. I don't get offended too easily. My family is someone I trust, is a group of people that I trust. I've got a best friend that I grew up with. I will call her. I will say, okay, this is the problem. I like to bounce ideas off of other people. And I will go back to this committee structure. That is why I think the committee structure is so good, because it's not just concentrating ideas and solutions into one person to come up with all the ideas, but you're working with a group of very intelligent, invested people to bounce ideas off of. So personal life, that's how I deal with it. On the board, I would go to the committee
and talk to the committee. So when faced with a difficult decision, I think I've got an algorithm here. It's been more or less explicit in my mind, more explicit as I get older. I mean, first of all, what's the goal? Where do I want to be with this decision after a relevant amount of time, whether that's the next day or the next 5 years? What's the goal? Where do I want to be? Second is to pull back a bit and not make the decision from with inside and feeling all the emotion that may be attendant, but to pull back and try to look at it from the outside. Then with Gloria, as Gloria said, check with other people. You know, am I really being dumb here? Am I missing something? What's, you know, please give me a reality check. And then last of all, you know, if I've been focusing on my goal, well, what's the fallout for others? What's the impact on other people? So those are the 4 things that I would say are difficult decisions.
So usually when I get to things, I haven't got a clue what's going on, is there's kind of 2 tools I use. In my background, I was accepted to be in the PhD program for experimental statistics. So in that vein, there's a lot of tools in there that I've used through my whole career because I was very good at them. One idea is the Pareto diagram, the Pareto effect, where you got the significant few from the trivial many. So I'll try to write down lots of things and say, there's a significant few and a trivial many. When I get the significant few, I'll try to say, okay, who knows about A, B, C, and D? And then those are the people I go talk to. The other kind of thing I found that worked real well for me, I call fishbone. Well, it's not my name, but basically you write an arrow and you say all the subjects going to feed this line that it could be, kind of like the Pareto effect. And then at the end, you got an arrow saying everybody's happy on the rest of their lives. Well, you start breaking down those subject matters and you start saying, okay, who's a specialist here? I don't know media. So if someone asked me to get media, what I'd probably do is fishbone the dumb thing. I'd probably try to see what's important. I'm a good spark plug, you know, but I'm not a good engine sometimes. I would go try to find the people that could run it. I know Carol Lee's in media. I know there's several other people that have been involved in media. I'd probably go talk to them. Fishbone it out, try to get a plan, and then bring the plan forth to whatever committee's looking at and see if you get any hands. You know, see if it passes a smell test, and then just kind of iterate. You try it again until you get every problem solvable. But that's where I start.
Oh boy. So.
Those other microphones should work.
It's working?
No, just
No.
speak up.
I'll teach me. Is that working now?
No.
No. All right, so this is working, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So. The crux of this question is, what is a difficult decision, right? In my mind, I break those immediately into 2, and there's probably more categories. Is it a difficult personal decision? Am I trying to make a choice here where I have an ethical quandary that has to be made, and that's what I'm trying to make my way through? Or is it technical? So you can't hear me?
A little louder,
Right,
Brian.
no,
Thank you.
thanks, Bob. So I would say that if we're talking about a technical problem, right? The answer to that for me is seek the experts. I know enough to know that I can't and won't ever know the most about any topic, right? But I can go and find and engage people that know more than I and learn and do my best to be able to assimilate and put that together. So my answer on the technical solution is engage experts and see what you can find out and learn as much as you can to make the best, most informed decision possible. That's on the difficult technical side. The other one's a little harder. If I have to make a difficult decision personally, or if I have a moral or ethical quandary, one, I try never to react inside of the first 24 hours. I try to at least make myself sit and not react knee jerk to what my initial response is going to be. I wish I could do that for this question. The second part about that is I never make those decisions alone. Anything that ultimately is going to affect me, where it's a quandary that I'm in, there are people whose opinions that I trust, from mentors to my wife, to my children, who I will ask those questions to and gather their feedback and then do my best to come up with what I think it is. And the last thing about that is I will be transparent and humble about the fact that I don't know what the answer might be in this regard, and I am doing my best to make a difficult decision. And sometimes I've had to deal with that from a health or a family member that needs care or something along those lines. And I've had to do it from a business professional side, staff and choices and things people have made hard choices there too. So I guess I break it into those two pieces.
Elise, I'm gonna have you try this.
So being a municipal judge, the types of cases that I hear in front of me are all ordinance violations. And while a parking ticket or a speeding ticket or even an OWI may not seem to you to be a big deal, for the person who's there and having to deal with it, it is a very big deal. For some of these people, it's their first and only time ever being in court or dealing with our court system. And my job is to provide a fair and impartial decision. Is to provide them the information they need to know in order to know what they're being charged with, what their choices are about how they can plead, if they go to trial, what type of information they need to provide, what the process is with the trial. And then in the end, if I have to make a decision at trial, I need to consider the evidence. I need to consider the arguments that both sides provide, and I have to understand and know the law. And sometimes that means preparing for the issues if there have been motions made by reading appropriate case law. It certainly means keeping up with my continuing judicial education to know the changes in the law. And that includes both the changes in the statutes and what's happening at the level of our courts. So my basic process for making a difficult decision is to gather information from many different sources, from the facts and from the law. I'm going to give you one quick example of something that wasn't a court case, but related to the court. And that goes back to when COVID came and everything was closing and shutting down. And I had to make the decision to go to Zoom for the court. And then later, a couple years later, when we were back to normal, to make things in person primarily. And each of those are difficult, but again, based on facts.
I want to take a technical break.
Okay, yeah, let me. While we're waiting, this is another.
Oh, yeah, he's pale now, don't you?
No.
Oh.
Did that.
This sounds good. Yeah, we do it. That's the idea of the next. Ready to go?
Not gonna light on it. Yeah, it's loose.
Yeah, it's good.
Huh?
Ding. Andy, right behind you is a tech person. Can help. Okay, give me a sec.
Yeah.
There's light there. I'm there. You're on the audio settings.
Just showed up. I think we've got it back. We
Smooth.
just need to.
Yep,
there it is.
There you go.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, we can see the screen now.
Okay, we're gonna move forward then. Thank you for your patience. And thank you for the tech help. Appreciate that. So this category again is once again village meetings and governance. And the question is, what do you think is the most pressing problem impacting village governance? The most pressing problem impacting village governance. And the order is Rocky, Brian, Felice, Carol, and Gloria. So Rocky, you'll lead us off.
I think it's the new governance model that centralized controls of the board and the village administrator. I think that's the root of all evil. And that's the first thing that should be torn up by the roots. You cannot have open communication when you have a group of 7 people acting like kings and deciding things for themselves. There's no interaction. I strongly believe in a committee system with no voting trustees on it. Trustees can be assigned, and the trustees rotate through the committee so they start to learn what they are. If I remember right, Gard and Peter used to move us around quite a bit so we learned what was going on. We didn't stay on one committee very long because that wasn't our role. The committee knew what they're doing. We were just there to understand and then to communicate back if need be. So to me, it's just get rid of this whole crazy experiment we've been on for the last 5-10 years. Go back to what works. Go back to strong committees, independent committees. Trustees can be assigned to them, but they do not vote. Their vote is up here. And then we go back and forth to the committees so that the board becomes an executive body, not an argumentative body. And that way, the board isn't seen as a thing just directing stuff. It actually gets to go back and forth, and we get to hear where the residents want to go. I guess, I hope that answers it. That's pretty much.
All right.
Do you mind rereading that question one more time? Because after listening to Rocky's answer, I want to say something different. I don't know if I would rather that thrust of it.
The question was, what do you think is the most pressing problem impacting village governance?
No, that's good. I'm happy I asked. The difference between governance and.
Can't hear you.
Oh, the microphone. Thank you. So I'm happy that that question was reread because the difference between pressing village governance and say the trustees or the board or the design, it's a separate thing. When we talk about governance, I think the most pressing issue for the village is that we need to get to a place where all of us are sharing the same information again as we discuss issues. So in any topic that we're going to make a decision about as a board, should I be elected, or even if I'm not elected, I would highly recommend this for everybody, right? Is that we need to make sure that all trustees have the same information. All residents should also, who are participating, be able to get access to the same information, provided there's not some legal reason why they can't, right? So, and we have not had that. So when we want to talk about where we should put our money for buildings, it's not entirely transparent to those folks that are watching where or how our finances are working and how they're going to be able to get it broken down, because that's shared once. They have to go out and dig it out. When that topic is brought up, it's not there. When we start talking about what to do about an individual topic, for example, just the retention bonuses that went in last time around, the last meeting, again, not all of the information shared with all the trustees, nor all of the residents. Same thing true with the P&L, same thing with the CSM. Since I started following village governance, I have yet to find an instance where everybody's operating from just the same basic shared facts. We need to figure out how to solve that. Because until we do, we're having different conversations with different emphasis. People are getting quite upset. And if we can just get to the point where we're all looking at the same info, governance will be very smooth compared to what's been.
So I have to stay out of the the village governance from the perspective of the trustees. So I'm not gonna say what I think is most important for the trustees, but I'm gonna speak from the perspective of the court. And it's really important for the court that we have a fully functioning governance system for our village, that we have an administration that's fully staffed, that we have a police department that's fully staffed, and that we have an understanding of what the court does and how it functions and why it's important to the village, and that all the people who make the decisions for the village are aware of what the municipal court does, why we have one, and it's important. So we have a police department, and the way that we can locally give people an opportunity to contest the tickets that they receive is with our municipal court. That way they don't have to go to circuit court and pay a higher amount. They also get to have their issue heard by a judge locally. And we have the advantage that because the judge has to be from our village, that it's a judge who knows something about the village and our values, our priorities, even our streets, even where our stop signs are and our speed limits. It makes things much easier. That court allows us to keep the peace in our village. And in order to function, the court needs a functioning village, administration, and board. Thank you. Does it work?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
And it's going to who?
Laura. I've got it.
So, as far as meetings and governance, I think we have part of what is undermining is the sense that everything is falling apart at the seams in the village. Full staffing would help a lot to restore a sense of normalcy. But I think we have some other underlying problems, which if we can make progress on correcting some of this would help a lot. And they're very technocratic, and yet we're seeing the problems come from them. I think our record system, and not in this only just in the sense of open records, but that underlies our problems with open records. Our filing, our organization system of records in the village has never met the modern era. And with the departure of David Sykes, we are finding out just exactly how many holes are in that system. Our ordinances in the village, this past year with the Sweetbriar, we found out about big holes in our ordinances, and problems related to that are not going to go away until we fix those. And several residents are working hard on that, so there's progress there. I think also there is some mission creep of the president's role over and above what is in the statutes. And it's customary in a lot of municipalities to have the president making agendas, have a president meeting with contractors. That's the way it's always been. But I think we need to consider really formalizing that so that everybody knows what the score is. And I think doing some of these, tackling some of these seemingly small things will add up to more of a feeling of order and normalcy and predictability.
Thank you. So for me, the most pressing problem impacting village governance is that it seems to be up for dispute what our governance is supposed to look like. So, for example, some trustees aren't really using the committee structure. Some trustees are using the committee structure. Our administrator is taking direction from some trustees, not other trustees. Some trustees have access to consultants. Other trustees don't have access to consultants. So, but yet, when you look at the Board of Trustees, each member of the board has been elected to represent the village by the exact same electorate. Each member of the board has 1/7 of the board vote. But yet, some trustees have more authority and significance, really, than other trustees. But yet, they weren't elected to special positions. The village president was elected to be village president. That confers different duties, but not greatly. And not to the degree that the village administrator should take marching orders from the village president. It is unclear to me what the org chart is for our village. We're so small. We don't have that many people, but yet we don't have an org chart. My opinion of the governance is that, no, but I said opinion because it's not really clear that everybody agrees on this. My opinion of the governance is that we have committees that are advisory to the board. We have a board that is a policy setting board that directs the administrator, who then directs the staff. And that is what I think we should be doing.
Thank you all. Okay, we're going to move on to another topic area, and then after this, we'll go back to the bucket with a question from the audience. This category is personal attributes. How long have you lived in the village, and over that time, how have you participated in village governance and activities? And for this order, we're going to have Gloria start us out, then Felice, then Carol, then Rocky, and then Brian.
I have lived in the village since 2014. I have participated in this village since my oldest son, who is 33, started school at Shorewood Elementary School. We moved here from Philadelphia. We moved into Eagle Heights, enrolled him into the elementary school. He was in third grade, the very end of third grade. The teacher thought he was kind of dumb. He wasn't. He has a master's degree in chemistry. He's very smart. But the teacher thought he was kind of dumb because we were moving in from Philadelphia and they were a full year behind Madison schools. And I knew that because we had moved from Ann Arbor to Philadelphia. And what I saw is he repeated the year prior that he had already completed in Ann Arbor, even though it was a grade level up. So the teacher thought he was dumb. And I got involved immediately doing work in the schools. I was one of the 3 amazing women who ran the Spark program. There's little backpacks that used to go home with the kids. It was a parent nightmare. I know that, but the kids loved it. And I know that because my college-age daughter asked me, what was the name of that? So kids loved it. Parents hated it. I was very active with PTO. When I moved back in 2014, this is the only place I wanted to live. I had friends find my house before I even set foot back there. I had a house all lined up, sight unseen. And I started off immediately helping to run the language program. I've done swim, I've done soccer stuff, I've done scouts, I have done governance for the last 10 years here. I don't know. I do a lot of stuff.
Thank you.
I first moved to the village 55 years ago. When I graduated high school, I was gone for a couple decades, but my mother was still here and my father for a while. And so I came home frequently. So really feel like that was part of my time with the village. I moved back over 25 years ago. I had young children at the time, so I got involved in Sherwood Hills Elementary School, particularly as in the PTO, and went through, did all the various volunteer positions. I did become PTO president, but I also chaired the science fair for a couple of years, the variety show, a couple fundraisers, and was involved in International Week. And of course, I helped out, as a chaperone with various kids' activities. So that was my involvement when my kids were going to school. Then I became a trustee. I was a trustee for 11 years. And while I was trustee, I served on a number of committees. So I chaired the committees, and my role was to facilitate the committee discussions. But I have to be very humble and say that each of those committees pre-existed me, and the people on the committees really knew what they were doing. So I was on the Recreation Committee, and I was on the Services Committee. Later, I was on the Public Health and Safety Committee. And in each of these committees, really my job was to facilitate. And I also was on some other committees as well, but I just want to say the people in these committees know what they're doing. And the way they were structured when I last was a trustee, they were great.
All right, my volunteer journey, like so many of the rest of us, it starts out with your children. And I always like to tell the story that my older child was born near Boston, and his first word was dog. But my younger child was born here, and his first word was cow. So we love many things about being here in Wisconsin, Madison, even though I'm from downstate Illinois. I was on the committees for Four Corners and Land Rec. I was on the All City Committee that was before the last All City. I was involved in PTO at Shorewood School, at Hamilton Middle, and at West High, and I was the lead for the plant sale fundraiser there for 7 years. I'm in the garden club. I have a triangle at now infamous triangle at Sweetbriar and Columbia, if any of you know where that is. And I very carefully avoided service in village government as long as my kids were at home. I was like, no way, I'm not doing that. And then too much of a commitment. And then when my children are gone, then there was no more excuse. I did not have that excuse. So and then also in the meantime there, I did a stint as Coach Carroll. I was for almost 10 years, middle school cross-country ski coach out at Blackhawk. So that's another piece of my volunteerism. So now this is hopefully my third term on the board, and I've learned a lot, and it has a thread with every one of those volunteer instances.
We'll get this over here. Well, I guess I got involved in the board when they redid the pool back in the middle 90s or something like that. Because they had one number and I started paying attention, and being in that area, I could see the costs were just exploding. And I tried to go to the board and try to say and point out what was going wrong, and was promptly thrown out the door. I tried to go to board meetings and was promptly told that my inquiries are interesting, though not needed. And I believe that budget, that was 3 times over budget. I mean, Charlie may remember, but I think it was almost $1.5 million to $2 million when it was done. It was meant to be like a $400,000 project. And from there, it just took off. I started writing a newspaper for a couple of years. I got involved in the TIF redevelopment because originally, believe it or not, they're going to put a tunnel. That was a flooding problem, a tunnel right under the golf course. And we stopped that. I'm probably the only trustee that's crawled down the sewers, crawled down the lift stations, check them out. I've been in the pump stations, see how they work. I actually know why we have exploding lines here and wrote to the village engineer who wouldn't fix them 5 years ago, say, this is what you gotta do. In fact, I used to be the guy that kind of everybody came to until the last two administrations here. Those two administrations didn't really need my opinion, much like back in the nineties. And so I've kind of went out. In the meantime, though, I was a scoutmaster for 15 years, First Robotics for 5-6 years. I used to take tours in Quetico, Boundary Waters, and then I'd take boys and girls out sailing for a week or two in the Apostle Islands, which is a lot of fun. So as far as committees, I've been on many of them. Never finances. I'm not good at that. I let that be somewhere else. And not communications. Very bad at that. But parks, oh man. You want to get beat up, you got to serve in a parks committee. Those ladies are ruthless. And then services, of course. I think my favorite committee was services, to be honest with you. Anyways, thank you.
So if longevity of service in Shorewood is gonna be the bar which you wanna vote, I'm probably not your man. I'm by far, compared to these folks, the newest to the village. It's 2019 we bought our home. That being said, I am an avid consumer of all of these things. My kids go to Four Corners. We spend time at the pool. They're in land rec. They want to use the ice rink. Everything that exists in this village, from golf programs to tennis lessons. My kids have done all of that stuff, and I try to make sure that we're taking advantage of all of that. So I have ideas about how, where and how those investments and what we all value that we deliver to our residents and how that should be spent very much on the consumer side of it in present day. And I think that too has value. I have tremendous experience in managing businesses and participating in other boards, as I mentioned, the one at Blackhawk a minute ago, where I still serve. But village governance and serving in village government is something that I actually never envisioned that I would do. I don't know if that's true of all of you who have served here at some point, but if you had asked me on my bingo card of life what I would end up doing, I would not expect that. I would have been sitting here. That being said, I really genuinely like these folks that have lived here for a long time. I am here for the long haul and raising my kids here. I care deeply about where all of this goes. And I would encourage you not to use the yardstick just by how long you've been around and what you've seen happen. There's value in new ideas to folks that are still consuming those services, to those that still have young children. To Gloria's part, my wife takes 11 minutes for doing this. And right now, because we have 2 young children and the business and the rest. But I still think it's important. I care about this place and I want to do what I can to help make it better.
Okay, we're gonna go to the bucket. We're going to go to the bucket for a question from the audience. Okay, this is a long question, so I'll just read it with feeling and try to get it through. The 2 acres of vacant lots in Garden Homes area are a potential source of additional tax revenue, but have remained undeveloped for 8 years. What would you do to promote a redevelopment of the Garden Homes neighborhood to generate additional revenue? I'm gonna read it again. Are we okay? Okay. And this time the order will be Carol, and then Felice, and then Gloria, and then Brian, and then Rocky. Focusing on Garden Homes.
So, majority of empty lots in Garden Homes are owned by one entity. And that entity is largely in control of their fate. On the other hand, there is zoning there that is under the control of the village. And there was a Garden Homes planning exercise that happened just a year or 2 before I came on the board. And some people agree with the types of buildings that are emphasized in that plan, and some people feel that there needs to be a type of zoning that allows much more density. And this topic came up pretty shortly after I joined the board. It was either in 2022 or 2023 when we were doing the University Avenue corridor plan. Should we replan Garden Homes as part of the university corridor plan, and rule follower that I am, I thought, well, no, because we just did that and it has its own plan, and we should not subject those neighbors of ours to the jeopardy of a second planning process in such a short amount of time. That said, in the intervening years, I mean, 4 years later now, still nothing has happened. So I don't think any of us want to see it sit the way it is in perpetuity, for a variety of reasons, not just financial. So I would be open to a reimagining of that, potentially rezoning. I don't know exactly where the conversation would go, but I think we need to open it up again.
Thanks, Cheryl. Louise?
That's not a question I
Okay.
can answer. If you
All
want
right.
to ask me a different question, or I can skip.
Skip.
Yeah, go on.
Just go.
Okay, skip. I'll yield to the audience. Gloria?
Well, I said in my opening statement that I've been canvassing. And I went down to Garden Homes and I knocked on people's doors. I talked with people who are renters. I talked with a few homeowners. Garden Homes flooded in 2018. And those lots, I can't pretend I don't know who those lots are. Tom, those are your lots. You're Tom. I guess the thing I think about this is those lots are empty. And I think, and I don't want to speak for anyone, but I do understand from having read the Garden Homes design plan that has been incorporated into the 2009 comprehensive plan, that Garden Homes design plan, they want single family homes. And I also understand that it's zoned R2, much like most of our villages zoned R2. Some of our villages are R1. And I also understand that you can build something within R2 if there's a PUD, a planned unit development that's approved. In order for that to happen, Tom is going to have to go through the plan commission. With our current board, that's just not going to happen. I just don't see that ever happening because John Imes is the chair of that plan commission. I don't see him being friendly to a PUD for that area. But what I really go back to is the fact that these are my neighbors. Tom, I think I've known you since our boys were 5. And I see Dave over there. I've known you since our boys were 5. And our boys used to play together. And I know you because of our children. And I just can't accept that it's impossible for us to sit down and open up the discussion and see if we can find someplace to meet in the middle. I just refuse to accept that because we are neighbors and we've known each other for a long time.
Finance or you?
So I am in agreement that after 4 years, there needs to be some kind of movement. We can't just sit letting a section of the village rot, right? We need to figure out how to invest in that space. I think that's or that means that zoning needs to be reconsidered, or if that means some other plan needs to be put together by bringing together various sides, that something needs to happen. What I will say, well, I have been trying to learn as fast as I can. And the TIF issue and the fact that we do not have any open development funds unless we close one early, which Gloria, I presume we'll talk about at some point, leaves us no time to be able to actually create a new district inside of which to do that currently anyways. So while we desperately need new construction to be able to fix our operating revenue cap, until one of those districts close, we're not in a position to be able to at least assist in doing that in anything other than zoning. And that means that from a perspective of the board, if we want to be able to act quickly as a body, the only way to do that is to make some concessions to be able to allow development to be able to continue. I would say that bringing parties together for private, direct conversation is something that should probably happen. And I don't know how that gets mediated separately, but that definitely would be a great first step. But the board being open to developing that differently and changing zoning is, I think, just absolutely a necessity. We can't leave that sitting the way that it is. It's surrounded by larger developments, so it does make sense to do it. Also, from a flooding standpoint, it does make some sense there as well. So I think that it's something that, as a village, is going to require careful discussion, but we don't have a lot of options from the board as to what we can do.
So this is where Rocky puts his foot in his mouth. This entire thing has been what the last two administrations are about. They're creating zoning rules down there to specifically block a private property owner from doing anything with his property. We don't own that land. Another guy does. We can't tell him what to do, we can't do it. I know when I was involved, I stopped being involved at some point because you could tell the whole thing was just a sham, is that property owner never asked for tip for tit. He doesn't want it. So when he develops that, or if he ever develops it, it goes right into our tax base. And there is no reason for that to be single family down there. I mean, I fail to understand the illusion. Think about it. If you put single family down there and you build brand new houses, put a price on them. What are they, $1 million a piece? We have this euphoria that these people are going to live there like me. I'm one who can't move into the village, could buy a house down there. I could never buy a house built in Garden Homes. That's the honest to God truth. That area is meant for higher density. Everything on that side of the railroad corridor has been higher density for 20, 30 years. You can see plans in Madison, you can see them in Dane County, you can see them in the state. And the reason why they're not is because of the last two administrations, period. I went to those meetings. Most of the people in those meetings, everybody knew it was a sham, so we just went along with the party and then left and had fun. Everybody knew what's going to happen. All the decisions were made in the Plan Commission before it ever came to the board. If they want to develop there, this board could develop there. They just have to revisit the zoning, put it back to reality, and then find something that property owner wants to put there and tell him he can't put it there with tip or tit, which he doesn't want anyways. Thank you.
Thank you again, everyone. So we're going to go into our final round of questions here. So I'm going to pick this from the hat and we'll go from there. And then following this round of questions, we'll have closing statements from each of the candidates. We're back to communication. What do you think, Paul? Over the past year, some village communications, particularly email exchanges and public meeting comments, have become highly accusatory and personal in tone. Looking back over the past year of village discussions and debates, is there anything you would approach differently in terms of tone, communication style, or engagement with others? And in the order will be Brian, Gloria, Rocky, Carol, and Felice. So Brian, you get to lead us off.
So I think this question is largely a repeat of the one that was answered earlier. The point where I question its value. If no one agrees to read a different one, I'll answer it, but I think that we should consider a different one.
I'll go with that.
It's a repeat.
Transparency in government. And if this is a repeat, you can tell me. Okay. This village resident wrote, there have been consistent statements by some sitting board members that residents seeking transparency in government through open records requests are not operating in the best interest of the village. This is a two-part question. First, do you agree that the residents are causing the problems that the village is facing, specifically as it relates to staff time and morale? And two, how do you propose that the new board can balance the requests for transparency with the constraints on staff time? And I'm happy to repeat those as we move.
Revenue question.
I think this.
That's the same question we had before.
Question.
Actually,
Because it's
revenue.
used the ORRs.
Yeah, how are we gonna?
I'm just going with the
meet our
flow here.
budget? Well,
Hey,
the
you're picking these
subject
out.
matters.
No, I mean,
The same.
We'll just keep digging here until we come up. Okay, village safety. This is it. This is a category we haven't hit on yet. Village safety. While delayed in 2025, the village has finally received notice it will soon be rewarded with a 150,000 Safe Streets for All grant from the federal DOT. This grant will help make our streets safer for users, especially pedestrians and cyclists. When you look at our village streets, what safety problems do you see, and what improvements would you like to see to make them safer for all users, including pedestrians and cyclists? Okay. All right. And for this, we'll go with Brian, Gloria, Rocky, Carol, and Felice. And Brian, you get to talk to someone. Thank you.
So this is a great question. And it ties into another discussion about the use of resources from a policing perspective, with having speeding and folks speeding through the community so often being such a problem, especially as at the end of business through the village. In my solution to this, I think is well demonstrated by our neighbors just to the west in Spring Harbor. If you drive down Lake Mendota Drive and you finish the straightaway where we have people sitting, timing people all the time, where we're paying a body to do that, what do you hit? You hit mild speed bumps, you hit restriction points, you hit center medians that are put in place to slow folks down. So the actuality is that there are modern solutions to traffic design that do not require nonstop staffing and radar guns by police officers giving all of us tickets, that equally slows traffic and makes streets safer, while creating spaces where you can put bike lanes along that shoot through, walkways that be able to shoot through, and make it so that cars cannot move through there at a high rate of speed. So from a safety perspective, I would like to see us move to, instead of trying to police that with nothing but traffic control, which currently is the only solution, other than if you go down Oakway and decide to go over those gigantic speed bumps. There's no other solution to slowing folks down functionally that exists here other than policing it. That's been tried. But yet the answer to all modern municipalities doing this is to introduce those choke points, those center medians, and change the way the traffic is forced to move through those spaces, to slow down, to not be able to straight line. So what I would like to see those funds spent doing is making those things to free up resources elsewhere, so that policing doesn't have to just be traffic control inside the village.
Finance.
Gloria. So I think it's great that we got some money. I think the biggest problem with our streets is speeding. It's cut throughs, people cutting through the village to get to their jobs. It's interestingly enough, it's parents running stop signs in the morning when they're dropping off their kids for school. There's been some debate over time about whether or not we should have sidewalks. You know, I live in a street where I think that sidewalks could really benefit, but I also don't want sidewalks. I live the house closest to the pool on Swarthmore Court. That redesign of Purdue, I think has been fantastic. I was so afraid before that redesign that one day a bicyclist would get hit. Why? Because of the stop sign that people run. Then they run that stop sign, then they get to the other stop sign closer to the pool, and then they run that one too. I've invited police to park in my driveway to watch the people running the stop signs. It's parents driving in late for swim practice in the summertime who are speeding and running these stop signs. It's so interesting to me that it's parents by and large that are running the stop signs in their hurry to get their children to where the children need to be. So if we could figure out a way to slow people down, have people either mind the stop signs or put in yield signs and a safer sort of crossway so that we could address the fact that people are going to run those stop signs. One resident, when I was canvassing, told me that he broke his knee on a pothole riding a bicycle. And he had to do a PowerPoint to bring it to the board to say, hey, there's potholes that need to be fixed. I don't think we should have to have a resident going out with a ruler and a phone measuring potholes to have our streets taken care of. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to make our streets safer.
$150,000 ain't gonna fix nothing. When you come to a street, you can talk about all the calming members you want, you ain't gonna do with $150,000. With that said, I'm glad we got the money. I would probably usually we have a few hotbed areas, just a couple areas. It'd be interesting to see if residents of that area had ideas of how to slow it down. Maybe some of that money could be used in that particular case. I remember when I was walking the village over on, I think it's University Drive, some residents had some really interesting ways to choke, just a couple of choke points would really slow cars down there. In that area, you could probably build a choke point without doing curbs and all kinds of hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. In that case, I could see, okay, why don't we talk about that? So, I mean, it's such a little amount of money. If we really want to use that for safety, that's probably what I do. Back to the Pareto thing. We probably got 4 or 5 spots in the village that people are really worried about. Can we do something with those 4 or 5 spots? Let's start with talking to the people who live there and asking them what they thought. And there.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone else has said. It would be great to say Shorewood Police go out and monitor the speed and write tickets, but that's just not going to do it. We don't have enough capacity. The passive strategies are better. I love speed bumps. I love the choke points. Everybody slows down when there are speed bumps so close together. I think that the prioritization of places where we spend our money has always received some blowback, some scrutiny. And as Rocky says, we can't actually fix anything for 150K. So to spend that money on a study where we do a really good job of our priorities, not only the surface and the configuration, but the sunlight. I can think of a place really close to me that's a perfect storm of sun in your face and downhill. I think that doing a good job of integrating all the elements, the lighting, the surface, the slope, the intersections, and coming up with a really good solid plan would be a best way to spend that money.
Okay, I'm gonna try in 2 minutes to cover several different. Right. Thank you.
I'm going to try in 2 minutes to cover several different perspectives. So first of all, the perspective from the court, yes, speeding is an issue. And we have a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit for a reason, because it saves lives. That's most of our village. But then don't forget that we also have Locust Drive, which is a little faster because we have got trucks going through on that. And then we have half of University Avenue. And so speeding on University Avenue is a very serious issue where we have people going 30, 40, 50 miles per hour over the limit. So policing is really important, because during COVID, when policing kind of stopped of speeding, people's speeds went higher. More people were speeding. They were speeding faster as well. So you gotta have policing to keep people on their toes, knowing that it matters that they're following the speed limit. Then I want to talk about a couple other practical things from personal experience and from my experience when I was a trustee. We always have this issue whenever we put things to slow down cars on one road, that they speed up and traffic increases on another. So anything of thinking about this has to think about it as a system for planning purposes. And then finally, from personal experience, I think a safety issue we have to think about is that the water drainage of the roads has to be controlled in such a way that we don't get sheer ice on our roads for safety.
Thank you very much. That ends our question. I can't believe how fast that went, but our question sessions. Now we're going to move to closing comments, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. And we're just going to go around the table. So Felice, you get to take start, and we'll just move around and we'll listen to each person's closing statement.
I want to thank you very much for being here, either in person or online. It's really important to participate in our village. And the fact that you are here listening and thinking about the people that you're going to elect, it's really important. I'm also going to ask you for your support of our municipal court, not just for electing me as a judge, but also for thinking about why you want to have a court and maintain a court in this village. I think that our court is very important for maintaining the type of lifestyle we want. Just think about this discussion about speeding. If you have these tickets going to circuit court, they're quite possibly often going to be dismissed. We take them very seriously in the village. So this is something that you can do by having a court, is you have the ability to choose the focus of where the police staff does the policing, and you have the ability to give everyone who receives a citation a fair chance to be considered about whether or not they actually did what the police allege them they did. And they also have the opportunity to negotiate a plea bargain so that they might take responsibility for their actions, but at the same time get a better outcome than they would have gotten just by having to pay the citation. This makes people more willing to participate and own their actions and be responsive. And it also is educational. It brings awareness to people of what the expectations are in this village. So I will ask for your vote and your support at our election. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everybody, Greg Lampy for moderating this forum, as well as all the residents who are attending in person and online today, and those who will check in later to watch this forum. We can't always be up to date about every issue moving through our different village committees and coming before the board for discussion and possible action, but we can be responsible voters who familiarize ourselves with the important upcoming issues and evaluate seriously the prospective candidates running for office to address these issues. Some of you know that I have 5 kids. My oldest is 33. My youngest is 16 years old and still at West High School. All of my kids attended Shorewood Hills Elementary School. Raising kids here gave them the chance from a young age to make friends that could become lifelong friends. As their parent, I have met so many people because of them and have had friends here for more than 20 years. This community celebrates each other as we move through life. We support each other through tragedy. Because of our community, our kids can ride their bikes to meet up with friends and play outside without constant supervision. And because of our community, we are more likely to be able to age in place as we grow older. We are a community that cares about each other. I mentioned earlier that I've been going door to door to talk to residents. That's my entire campaign. We're a community of fewer than 2,200 residents. We are neighbors. As we move forward together, we will not always agree. We will sometimes disagree very strongly. But please, let's never forget that we are neighbors. And let's always fiercely protect our sense of community, even when we disagree. We have important issues to address in our village. We have a budget deficit projected to begin next year. We have contentious development proposals. We have high turnover in our administrative department. We need to work. And the two questions we need to answer are, how are we going to move forward? And who do we trust to be on the board to represent our interests? I ask you for your vote on April 7th to elect me to the Board of Trustees. Thank you.
Well, all anyone has to do is look at the DA's open record requests to see that the experiment that we've been going on for the last 5-10 years is an utter failure. That request should put everybody's hair on end. And that also, there's a number of people on the board which should be running for lawyers right now. Because if they get to the bottom of what he's asking for, it will not be good. With that said, I think I'll just read the last little parts here I have that I had to punt on, because otherwise I'll just gab. Because I really do believe this, by the way. It took me a long time to try to. Short Hills was once defined by cooperation and teamwork. It was all our voices coming together as one. Our news story involves bringing that old story back to life. The correction will not be easy. The current system is full of speed bumps and roadblocks specifically designed to prevent our original story's origin story. As I just stated, bringing the news story to life will not be easy, but it is necessary. Necessary if we wish to remain an independent village. It's necessary if we wish that the village of Short Hills should survive for our children and our children's children. Necessary if we wish to remain a community. If elected, it's this new story which I will bring to the board. So in the end, it's up to the voters. I hope the voters will elect all new trustees who believe in something possible and achievable. Yes, it is time for a new story. The strength of our village is the residents. We have so many incredibly talented, smart, and diverse residents in our village, which can provide an unmeasurable impact to our independent committees and have the heart to continue making the village a very special place. I ask for your vote for village trustee. I do not pretend to be perfect, but I believe my insights and experience as an engineer, former trustee, long-term resident will help our community get back together. It's time. It's time for a new story. Thank you.
Tough acts to follow in both cases, and I agree with all those points that previously have just followed, or just were made. So it's clear that the village needs change. Anybody that's been paying any attention, that's been coming to these meetings, that's been listening to the vitriol, that's the conversations about who's doing this or who's doing that from whichever bubble we're on. It's very clear that we can't continue like this. We just can't. So I beseech you, select a new board, as much change as possible right now. We cannot continue like this. We cannot continue hiding information from one another. We cannot continue with this level of vitriol. And we have real issues to address, as Gloria pointed out, because we've also spent ourselves into the red with no plan to get out of it. Our current budget gave everybody raises and didn't do anything to bring any of that down and get us back under control. We have real issues that need to get solved, and they're going to take people that can work together and share information well in order to get that done. I believe that I am part of such a team that can do that. And I very much ask for your vote in this coming election cycle in April, so that we can start to make positive changes around here and be able to start budgeting inside of our meetings, figuring out how we're going to make those changes, actually plan to do capital investments so we can have a tax base so that we actually have an operational budget that succeeds, and make realistic choices about what our infrastructure looks like so that our kids aren't going to a crumbling pool building, and so that the village, the folks that are working in the town hall or the little fire station are not working in just decrepit conditions. We can do much better. This is a wealthy community. It's a community of talent and resources. We can pitch in the local government. We can all be in a position to help Brian. I would also highly encourage us to talk about hiring some folks from within the village to join that staff to help end the vitriol that we have so we can start coming together as a community again. I think that would be a big step for us to move forward. So again, thank you, and I would appreciate your vote.
Well, I would like to thank everybody here for spending these couple hours, everybody online also for taking their time. I would like to thank both Greg and Jody for their service. And it has been quite a bit of service over the last couple of weeks. Also Koki, who did bucket duty over there. Thank you, Koki. Yay. It takes a village. So, as the only incumbent, as I mentioned before, my message is a little bit different, but it's basically that I've learned a lot. I still think I have a lot to give. I pledge to be respectful and to work hard. And I think that people will see that in me and hopefully will vote for me on April 7th. Thanks.
Okay, I just want to say once again, thank you to our candidates. Please give them a round of applause. And also,
Great, you have 3 minutes.
okay, yeah, I'm on the clock, I know, but I was gonna yield 5 minutes to Brian's request, so I'm gonna be very brief, I promise. Yeah, I'll be very brief. But I also want to thank all of you for participating, those of you here in the room and those of you that are online and those, as Gloria said, who will be watching later. It really is every election is important, and so it's important that we're informed and we get a sense of the candidates. And again, I want to thank the candidates for giving us a real sense of who they are and where they stand on the issues. I also want to remind you that our day of voting is Tuesday, April 7th, and the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and you must be registered to vote, and you must have a photo ID to register and vote. So and more information you can find on the village website. I also want to point out that on the questions that you got, again, that's the full list of questions. I have my email address and I put that on there on purpose so that if you have suggestions to improve the forum, or if you have other questions or you want an electronic version, please feel free to reach out to me and I'm happy to gather that information. And of course, at the end of this, you're invited and encouraged to hang around. We didn't get to all the questions. You may have lingering questions, and please feel free to linger and mingle with the candidates. And with that, I will close it and again say thank you very, very much. Brian?